Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about a topic that's very, very important to me, social media. It's Social media can have a bad rap to certain people. A lot of people think that it is the absolute worst, that it is the reason the world is a terrible place, or all of the different things that the downsides that can. We are going to start over. Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about a topic that's very important to me, and that is using social media as an educator in the classroom, out of the classroom, all over the place. Social media can get a bad rap. A lot of people think that it is the worst thing in the world. Um, there are some terrible things that can happen on social media. However, there are more good things that can happen as a result of proper use of social media. And so it's important for teachers to be able to know how to use it to benefit themselves and to benefit their students. And it's also important for teachers to be able to teach it to their students so that they will be responsible users and understand the good parts of social media rather than just the stuff that you see on the news. So let's take a look at a couple of things. So starting out, this is a quote that I've read, and I've actually seen it as being quoted from a couple of different people, but in the research that I did, the best I could find was that Abraham Lincoln said it. We can complain because rose bushes have thorns, or rejoice because thorn bushes have roses. We have to see the good in everything. And social media is a great example of that. We have to be able to show why it is such a good thing, why it is there to benefit all of us, rather than the terrible things that can happen that are being done by a small group of people. And so, once again, that is why we're talking about this. That is why we need to teach this to our students. And that is why social media is such an important topic. So we're going to start off with using social media in the classroom. Now, this is actually using social media offline. This is really getting students introduced to being able to use social media. The first thing that I did with students when we talked about creating tweets was create a Google form where I post a question to students and they answer it with a tweet. So essentially, what I'm doing is I'm putting a character count limit on their answer. I encourage them. This is the only time I encourage them to use texting language, hashtags, all of those fancy things that we do on Twitter and other social media to limit our character usage because when we're sending out information in social media, it's good to have it be quick. There's a reason there's a character count on Twitter. They don't want you writing a book. It is supposed to be a quick send out. Now, they did double the character count from 140 to 280 this past year. That is really crucial. It helps me a lot. I'm very wordy, but it still gives you that limit. So creating this Google form allows students to kind of introduce how to write a tweet and answer a question in a tweet. This really shows them how social media can be used responsibly because they're answering questions responsibly. Also, many teachers use this for their classroom Twitter account. They will say, someone create a tweet that based on what we did today. Everybody will fill in the form, and the teacher will choose one. With the character count, you can just copy and paste and move it over. And so, this is a way that you can gather information and allow your students to actually compose the tweets that are going out on your classroom Twitter page, but you are still the one that is sending out the tweet itself. The students wouldn't actually have access to the account. So this is great for elementary schools and schools of all ages. If you have a classroom Twitter account, creating a Google form where students can put in an answer with a character limit is a really, really great way to introduce them to using social media in the classroom. Book snaps. If you don't know about book snaps, you need to check it out as soon as you can. Get on Twitter, follow Tara Martin. I believe it's at Tara Martin EDU, and see all of the wonderful things that she is doing and the entire Book Snaps community is doing. It is amazing, amazing. I've worked with teachers and done this with students a couple of times, and the students really, really take to it. So essentially, what you're doing is students are reading. Whatever they're reading in class, they're going to take a snapshot of that page, whether they're reading a physical book or they're reading it online. They're going to take a snapshot of that physical page and they're going to sum it up by adding text, adding pictures, adding emojis, bitmojis, whatever, and find the most important part of that text. What this does is it increases retention and critical reading, and the kids are creating products that they are enjoying making. I'll tell you this, the first time I made a book snap, I wound up reading the chapter of the book I was reading 3 times because I couldn't decide which part was the most important that I needed to really point out and create the book snap on. So it made me read more and it made me read more critically. It made me go back and reread and go over things. And that's what we want our students to be doing. We don't want them skimming pages. We want to teach them how to critically read and analyze text and really pick out what is the most important part of that text. And this allows them to use Snapchat for doing something that they really enjoy and use that for school. Now, Snapchat is great if you are using, if you teach secondary. If your students already have Snapchat, let them utilize the tools that they love using already. If you're teaching younger kids and they don't have Snapchat, and you obviously are not going to give them access to your Snapchat account, there's so many other tools, whether it's Seesaw or Google Slides or anything else that can be used to create book snaps. Like I said, go on Twitter, go to Tara Martin's website, find all of the amazing resources that Booksnaps has, and start using them. They can be used in every single class, whether you're teaching automotive or English 2. It doesn't matter what class you teach. These can be used because we all have to read, we all have to analyze text. And this is yet another way we're showing students how to use social media in a proper way, being able to use the tools that they have in a proper way. And that's very, very important. If you have younger kids, it's teaching them about Snapchat before they even have access to it. So I highly recommend you go check out Booksnaps. Next, we're going to talk about using Twitter professionally. I only started using Twitter professionally about 2 years ago. Before then, I was on Twitter only to check the tweets from my favorite sports teams. And once I started joining a Twitter community of educators, it completely changed my career. This graphic drawn by Sylvia Duckworth, if you're not familiar with Sylvia Duckworth, check out all the amazing things that she does with sketchnoting and everything. Perfectly sums up how I feel about using Twitter professionally. When I first started, I was very excited. I loved my job. I did a wonderful job. I loved teaching my kids, and I felt like I was constantly growing. Then, after a few years, I kind of did the same thing over and over and over again. And I don't know that I would quite say it was boredom had set in, but I did kind of get in a rut of doing the same thing over and over again. And I found myself doing the same assignments and not really growing as an educator. And I wasn't learning very much myself. And it got to a point where my classes kind of ran themselves and it was, I mean, it was kind of boring. And so I realized I needed a new challenge. And luckily, that's what Twitter brought. Once I joined Twitter, I learned so much. I learned things every single day from educators around the world by going on Twitter and seeing what they're doing in their classroom, seeing the discussions they have. So join a Twitter chat, join Twitter, follow educators around you. It is such the educational Twitter community is so huge. There are so many amazing, amazing people that you can share ideas with and learn from every single day. It will change your career, I promise. So whether you are just starting out and want to learn some new things, or you are getting to that point where boredom might start to kind of set in, Twitter is such a beneficial resource for everyone. I highly, highly, highly recommend joining Twitter today. Um, so, like I said, it's connected educators from around the world, and it's basically free professional development. And it also gets the community involved with what's going on in the schools. These are tweets about some of our campuses here in Fort Worth, and showing what some of the students are doing, all of the amazing things that are going on in our schools. There are so many great things on Twitter, and it's kind of a rabbit hole of learning that you really go down, and you start learning and you can't stop, and it will reinvent your career and reignite that passion that you've always had for teaching. It is such a great resource. I highly recommend starting out today. Like I said, professional development on Twitter is great. You can learn so much from all of these different companies, from educators. I know I didn't know anything about code.org before I got on Twitter, and following them, I can find their different resources and things that they do. And then Twitter chats. Twitter chats are just a fantastic way to connect with other educators and learn different things that are going on around the country and around the world. Twitter chats are worldwide. We connect with educators from Australia and Korea and every other country in the world. And it's a fantastic way to kind of learn what they're doing in other cultures and what they're doing in other classrooms, because education is the same no matter who you're teaching and where you're teaching. We all want to find ways to engage students and help them learn. And so these Twitter chats allow you to do that. They'll post a question, you'll answer, and you'll have a discussion with the other people that are participating. Um, a few resources that are just amazing. These three books are really good. Todd Whitaker, What Connected Educators Do Differently. He's written a few books about what great principals do differently and what great teachers do differently. I recommend all of those. They are all fantastic. George Couros is amazing. The Innovator's Mindset will make you want to run out and create new resources for your classroom immediately. It really gets you fired up for wanting to teach and be an educator. It is such a great book. I highly recommend you go check it out. And then Social Media is a newer book that just came out this year. And it really changed the way I looked at social media and how social media can be used in our classes. It really takes a look at how we can leverage the power of social media to lead our students. So I highly recommend these three books. I highly recommend checking out Twitter, or create a Facebook page or an Instagram page or a Snapchat account, or anything that will allow you to connect to your colleagues, to your community, to the parents of your students. Anything to show what it is that you're learning, and to be able to learn more. Social media can be such a fantastic tool for anybody. So I hope that you will go out and join a social media group, or enhance the social media use that you already have, and connect with educators around you.